No, no. The egregious thing about the way the ports, the lease arrangement is that the government of the city of Long Beach negotiates, pursues aggressively these treaties. So our government gives sweetheart deals to the Chinese government to get them a big lease agreement. It's a conflict of interest that these cities are actually using our own resources to sell us out. It's a sweetheart deal.
I was going to say a lot of these ports are also large Navy ports. So they could be using, different means to steal technology on our naval ships as well, because they seem to be doing things in such a stealth manner that our security is. And I was thinking also of eminent domain. Did this happen during the Clinton administration?
Yes.
Yeah, why am I nuts? All those trips to the Lincoln Bidder.
Well, yeah, okay. and all the suspicious donations that came from Chinese, from Chinese people with no money whatsoever, suddenly all made all these
Chinese monks.
Chinese monks and everybody else. Were they Chinese? Said had made all these great donations, although with no visible means of support.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
To the best of your knowledge, do any of the Republican candidates for president, are they aware of the situation? Do they care? And if they're not aware or don't seem to care, do you have any plans to try to inform either all of them or the one that's ultimately victorious?
Well, the biggest thing about the political world, the thing is that, again, why China and Pier to us is such a big issue is because it's just completely ignored. It's flabbergasting how, there were plenty of threats to our country in the world, to our country from around the world, but it just is utterly a blind spot. People from time to time have made some very serious lip service to the concerns about China, but they seem to stop at lip service. And except when Dubai Ports World was a furor in the news, Pier that kind of our seaport security seems to be completely lost. I think in fact I remember, a political friend that I worked for recently. I don't know if you realized made some comments in the 2000 U.S. Senate race in Delaware that was resurfaced in 2010, and she was mocked for saying basically what is true, that China has developed plans to invade the United States. Well, of course they do. Are they going to do it? Well, maybe not, but of course they're developing plans to potentially take military action, and that was considered like goofy to say what is absolutely true. I would love to do exactly that, and I think it's an excellent idea. I'm not quite sure how I could pierce through the layers of security to get them to pay attention, but I think we do need to do things like that. Elections are the perfect time to get people to pay attention, and without necessarily being partisan, it gets people to pay attention. We need to work on that. Okay, yes, Mr. Smith.
The 22nd of this month, the American Enterprise Institute and Heritage Foundation are sponsoring a debate among the candidates down in Constitution Hall.
Oh.
Is there any way that Congressman Wolf or you or any of your affiliates can ensure that some of these issues that you are discussing tonight are brought up in that debate? Because it's going to be about national security. That's the issue that's going to be discussed in that debate.
I would think that Congressman Wolf ought to be able to get, nobody can force them to do it, but could certainly get them to pay attention. I think that's an outstanding suggestion. We'll do that to see if now Congressman Wolf doesn't necessarily share our focus on the ports per se, but I'm sure that that would be an outstanding suggestion to make sure that they address that. Like I say, I think most of the candidates say just enough about China to kind of get us in the base to think, oh yeah, they're with us, but they don't go any further than that I've seen. And so I think that would be an excellent opportunity to get them to really pay attention to that. Anything else burning? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just trying to make sure I understand what you're inferring, that in these ports, none of the U.S. customs rules apply to imports in and exports out?
Oh, that's a very good and unfortunately very complicated question, because it is true that everybody in the port has to comply with U.S. customs rules and U.S. law. However, what makes that complicated is that the way it works, of course, is random selection and targeting. Oh, what's the word? They have to look for red flags. And so the planning, and first of all, everybody who's part of the stakeholders coming up with the plans becomes aware of what are the triggers, what are the red flags that people are looking for. And it also depends a great deal on a lot of self-reporting and the people who are involved in the port cooperating with those plans. It is true that if customs were to target a ship or a container, they would certainly preempt. They would certainly have the right to inspect anything they want to inspect. But the problem is that they don't have the resources to do more than just a tiny fraction. In fact, like I said, they caught 2,000 AK-47s coming off the Costco, what is it, the Empress? And they do occasionally catch things, and then of course Costco says, we don't know anything about it. But there's tremendous opportunity to either manipulate or evade those things if you are one of the players. The Empress Phoenix, excuse me, was boarded, and they caught AK-47s coming into it. So which is why I would argue the difference between having ships come on board and pull up at the dock versus actually controlling the real estate, having this enclave where you're behind closed doors and do your own thing, is there is opportunity for manipulation and for knowing how not to trigger an audit, IRS terms, that kind of thing. So that I think would be the concern. Of course, if there were ever any truly hostile action, it would be a coordinated and highly aggressive series of actions across different ports and around the world that would be in disregard of those rules and would just be a surprise attack. But that's most of the concern is smuggling and things like that. No, I'm sorry. I probably have to. Real quick.
Can you describe how the gangs in Los Angeles contacted the Chinese, and what was the plan for the gangs to use the AK-47s?
I don't think that's, maybe that's just something I've missed, but I don't think that's ever been disclosed as to how it was publicly reported by the authorities that these were intended to be sold to street gangs. And I don't know if it was a sting. Like they also caught someone who wanted to import the shoulder-fired missiles, and that was a sting. So they were pretending to be the other side of the transaction. That's how they found out what the plan was. I wish that's a very good question, and I would assume that creating street gangs would create chaos and things like that. All right, let me move on now.